One of the first steps of using any of the Nunn Design bezels and other products is to clean them thoroughly. This will help eliminate any of this blackening that you see on here. And what the blackening is once the pieces are plated, in these cases, this is 24 karat gold plate and this is 0.999 fine silver, we put it through a final rinse which involves a acrylic blackening. And it's ideal for getting down into little crevices because it adds a lot of visual interest inside of there. But where it's a downfall, and it also makes the plating super unique, but where it's a downfall is that if you have any resin that spills over the sides and gets into these little crevices, when you go to release that resin, it removes the blackening. Here's also another example of where the blackening was really prominent on these side edges, and I just didn't clean it up. And you can see it in comparison to something that has been cleaned up. It just gives a totally different effect. If this is the look that you like, that's great, but for the most part, I tried to clean all of my bezels. Other reasons are because when you do have overflow, and this happens, you can see that when you peel that resin up, it takes away some of the blackening. Now, this is not going to be possible for you to really get in there and clean that, but just know that that is some of the consequences of having the bezels not be fully cleaned, or if there's overflow, that blackening can be slightly altered. To clean Nunn Design products, you will need to have a little bit of rubbing alcohol. You'll need to have some toothpicks and some Q-tips, and you will also need to have some wet wipes. Go ahead, and I like to open up my container of the rubbing alcohol, just stick my little Q-tip right down inside of there. You can see that blackening just comes right off. Another reason why I like to do this step, not only because of how it affects this surface area, which we just discussed, but it also goes down into the bezel itself. And why that would be important is when you go to use crystal clay, or you go in and when I use crystal clay and then I have to remove it out of my bezel because either I had too much or it wasn't quite right, I have picked up this blackening on my white clay, and so I've just gotten into the discipline of going in and cleaning it. You can, with your toothpick, go in and just rub around that outside edge. You don't need to be really, really exact, but it is helpful just to make sure that the bezels are nice and clean. So focus on the inside area, on these upper side edges where the resin will cover up, and then inside of this little bezel part right here, this part where the loop is onto the bezel, you want to make sure that that is all cleaned up inside the loop. So just make sure that you get into the practice of always cleaning up your bezels prior to pouring the resin or using the clay. This is fairly fast to do. If you want to get your Q-tip wet, go around this outside edge, just add a little bit of the rubbing alcohol onto there, and then come back in with a wet wipe, going on the insides too. I'm going to do the back side. Areas on this that you really want to focus on is inside of here. I like to focus on this back side here because often I attach this bail onto a clear resin area, so you want to make sure that that bail area is clear and clean. On the inside of all of these little bezels, on the open frames, you're going to want to make sure that you get in there and clean those too.